Good evening. My name is Chaim Masinta. Thank you for joining us. Our topic tonight is reigniting and designing your next. Given what 2020 has presented to us, most people have been forced to think differently about their lives, careers, and finances. Whether you are looking for new opportunities, have recently been retrenched, looking for a second career, maybe needing to pivot your current business, or merely looking for a side hustle, Zuki, Mzozoyana, and Lana Leas-Roy will show us how to learn and skill differently in this new world of ours. They will inspire and uplift us about the future of the workplace as they provide us with nuggets on how to reinvent ourselves and thrive in the 21st century. It is my very great pleasure to introduce our speakers. Lana Leas-Roy is considered one of the top thought leaders for human core skill development, especially the skills of creativity, complex problem solving, and critical thinking. Lana works with blue chip companies to help them develop a culture of creativity and also helps smaller companies and individuals pivot their businesses. She empowers people to challenge the status quo and look at things differently. She gets people to ask the all-important question, why? And by so doing, this allows people to relook and rethink the way they operate. Lana owns her own company called Goats to Unicorns. She's an innovative people person with a strong creative energy. She's also a facilitator for Duke Corporate Education and Genius Igniter for 21st Century Humans, where she works very closely with Zuki Mzozoyana. Our next speaker, Zuki Mzozoyana, has always been a little off-center in the design of her own career and her general worldview and outlook. Having straddled both worlds sorry. Having straddled both worlds as an entrepreneur as well as a corporate professional, Zuki found her sweet spot and niche based on a combination of her passions, experience, skills, and view of where the future of work should be going. In 2017, Zuki established 21st Century Humans, which is an organization that looks to design learning experiences for post-school young adults and career professionals who are reinventing themselves for relevance, purpose, and impact in the 21st century. Zuki is often invited to speak on 702 Radio and others. Lana and Zuki will be interviewed by well-known South African TV and radio host Ilana Africa Breerenkamp, who is an MC, actress, and entrepreneur. She's also a highly influential in social media. Without further ado, let me call on Ilana.
Thank you so much, Chaim. A warm welcome if you just joined us. So we've journeyed every Thursday through load shedding and knots, through leopardology, resilience, and even psychology. And you heard it from Chaim. Today we're talking about our next, and especially when it comes to the workplace. Lana, great to see you again. And Zuki, great to meet you tonight. Zuki, I'm going to jump into this. We're talking workplace, and for most of us, it has changed. Our workplace has now become our homes. Some of us, I mean, my building's 30% full. Define workplace for us, and also how one can make what you have around you feel like it is the place where you can be productive. And Lana, you can perhaps come in with this as well, because I know that you are strong in creativity. You are someone that has worked from home before, and now this big name workplace, I mean, most of us have stopped renting offices. We're at home.
Yeah. Thank you, Ilana, and hi to everyone. It's so good to be here. I mean, you asked the question, define workplace, right? And the exciting thing about where we are right now, and I think what the pandemic has done, is forced us to redefine that. We've gone from defining workplace as the 9 to 5, the job, the one employer, to hello, we need to redefine this because we're no longer at a single employer. There is not one building. Your home is your office, and so many paradigms have shifted. The other reality that underpins that is that the need to generate an income has shifted from the reliance on a single source of income to multiple sources of income. Yeah. Now, what the gig economy has done is also made it very possible for every person to be able to be a contributing member of this new defined workplace. So for me, if you ask me what is the workplace of the future, or the workplace that has come out of this pandemic, it is a place where every single person can bring who they are and create value that will connect with other people. And if we can keep it as simple as that, then what we have done is equalize the playing field and allowed people to give and bring value based on who they are, and not just based on because I went to the school, or I got these degrees, or I got these certificates, or, you know, that need to carry these labels that are so outside of ourselves. And when we don't meet the labels, we then stay home and feel valueless or unable to bring value. So if anybody should be terrified about the changes, my call to them would be, do not be terrified. In fact, the world is now ready for you to bring who you are.
Love that so much. Lana, what is your approach, especially from a creator point of view?
So in terms of, I look at skills. What are the 2020 skills, if you want to say, or the current and future skills needed in the workplace currently? And, you know, if we looked at it in 2015, something like creativity was sitting at the number 10 skill according to the World Economic Forum. Jump 5 years in 2020, and it's also noted in 2025. Creativity is now sitting at one of the, well, it is probably one of the top skills needed in the workplace. Amongst things like critical thinking, complex problem solving, and emotional intelligence. And all of these actually combine what we call adaptability or adaptable intelligence. And carrying on what Zuki was saying, in order to be a person working in the workplace today, one of the strongest skills is that of adaptability. But part of that is the ability to be creative. So Lana, what do we mean by creative? And why is creativity so important in today's world? And why are they listing it as one of the top skills? And I think when people think of creativity, they think of people who build beautiful or paint beautiful things, and artists and beautiful dancers and that type of creativity, or put together brilliant advertisements and so on. But creativity is actually not about that. That is a separate gift that people are born with. Creativity is a skill. And what we mean by that is it's something that we are born with, and that we actually, what happens when we go through the school system is actually we're educated out of creativity. And what happens is creativity is mental freedom. It's the ability to make choices. So for example, people who are now thinking of new businesses, people who have been retrenched, their first initial thought process is, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? I've done this for the past 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. That's all I know. You know, I'm finished. What can I do? And creativity is that ability to come up and think of many ideas. So I think I have the opposite problem, is that I just have so many ideas. And if one thing doesn't work, I've got like another 50 plans. So I never feel incarcerated. I never feel mentally incarcerated in the sense that there's no other choices available to me. And that is really what creativity means in today's world, the ability to come up with many different ideas and be able to actually learn that skill. Yeah. I don't know if, can I continue a little bit on that? Or
I think you've defined it in terms of workplace, and you've answered so many questions. Later on, I'm going to ask you a question around being stuck. You know, how do you get to the point of creativity? But I think you just answered it, that it's not the painter. You know, we're not looking for a Picasso in the workplace. I like the fact that you say that it's many ideas of, and it brings me to this point that to be creative, I would imagine the more you practice, just like self-work, the better you become at it, right? The better you become at recognizing an idea that you will be good at, or even recognizing your talent because you're practicing, right? Zuki, this one's for you. Now that we have established the workplace and my environment, you know, I'm thinking back to our discussion around leopardology. This leopard is now realizing that it's either raining or it's not, or this is my home, or I'm hiding somewhere temporarily. What are some of the current and future trends in the workplace And what does it mean to show up? You know, everyone always talks about showing up. So
Show up.
show up and then what? You know?
So yeah, so that's an interesting thing, right? If you dissect the workplace into two spheres, the one being the traditional employment space, right, where you go look for a job. There are emerging trends there, and the second sphere being the fast-growing gig economy, entrepreneurship. The startup community is growing, and what the youngsters will call the slashy. You know, when you're this slash that, slash that, slash that, where you create a portfolio of interest that you learn how to commercialize. So if we look at it from that point of view, I think that's where the opportunity opens up for a lot more people, where you can think about your skills in a more diverse and less incarcerated view, like Lana said. So I have multiple interests, and you should, as a human being, have multiple interests. And sometimes you figure out, as most people figured out during lockdown, that they can bake. Before lockdown, this was not a valuable skill, but it suddenly became very valuable because there are a lot of people that suddenly were forced into their home, but realize that when I'm home so much, I don't have a lot of skills. Like, I don't know how to make things happen in the home. So suddenly you can commercialize what used to be an interest of yours that was limited to you providing to your family something that you love to do. And now you can provide that to everybody on a much grander scale. Then you look at things like the growth of internet-based businesses. What I'm meeting lately a lot are people that are virtual assistants, right? It's not a new thing, but suddenly it has become such a highly demanded thing. So when the startup community grows, they don't have the kind of money to go invest in, you know, big fancy offices or professional skills and services. But you've got that somebody who used to be an administrator, who actually is very good at organizing and can rely on software that has been designed to run offices for people they will literally never meet.
Right.
And that goes to things like being a concierge service because you're so good at organizing. So I know that I need tutors. Because aren't we all suddenly homeschoolers? We need tutors. We need to organize runs to different sporting activities, this, that, and that. But if you're a busy person, you actually have now created a need for somebody that organizes your home-based activities. So I think for me, the trends that are emerging, first of all, are being born out of the need to purely survive, right? And that is when the greatest creativity is born, when people are in survival mode. But the secondary message to that is that please recognize that you thinking you're in survival mode, you're actually on trend with what is happening globally. People are no longer relying on the system to provide security by way of jobs, validation, by way of worth, because you don't have the certificate or you don't work for this big name brand. What is actually being valued is the simple thing. What is it that people around you need? And what have you got that you can supply?
Love that. Well, if you've just joined us and you've just tuned in, we're talking about your next, reigniting and designing your next. We've got Leas-Roy from Goats to Unicorns, an amazing platform. I checked it out earlier today. Also together with Zuki, Mzozoyana, 21st century humans. We're talking and unpacking about what the workplace is all about. That's where we started this evening. And then also we're talking around, so what if you have the skill, you know, how do you use it? I loved how you talked about how your talent can actually become something that can service other people. Lana, I know that you are a skills person. In terms of skills, what type of skills do you need to navigate? We've learned now about the workplace. Then we've learned about, you know, I love how you define it into different avenues. And what you've said is just such a confirmation of how okay we actually are, Zozi. I really enjoyed your comment about just because it feels new to you, you are on trend. You know, this is what's happening to everybody at this stage. Lana, what would you say? What kind of skills are needed in this time to navigate in the workplace?
So, Ilana, I think in the beginning I explained that the top skills are those of adaptability, creative intelligence, emotional intelligence, and then we can look at things which are things like collaboration and team building. So all of those are important, and what we call those skills are actually soft skills. So I'm not referring to technical skills. So we must just make sure we understand the difference to what is a technical skill and what is a soft skill or core skill, because a technical skill is something you've learned. So to learn to bake is a technical skill. To be able to take that and sell it to many people, you will require the soft skills. Yeah. And just to further on, and I think you spoke about creativity, that you got to work on it. And all these skills are things that you have to work on. You don't wake up one day and say, I have this. And it's similar to that of a technical skill. And in creativity, it's like a muscle that you actually, it's shrunk. It's actually part of this dorsal prefrontal cortex. It's actually shrunk over the years. And because schools are breeding grounds of convergent thinking. So we are taught to think in one possible way. So when we leave, they're so linear. We are so linear in their approach. And that's just been the education system for the past 100 years. Nothing has changed. And this is what I have, or we as professional skill people have to train people, is how to reignite those muscles. So let me just give you a few examples, and I'm just carrying on in creativity, is how do you reignite that muscle? Your first thing is, Ilana, to ask the question why. Truthfully, we have forgotten to ask why. We follow things like, as I said, like little parrots. And just to give you an example, I use this one is, Lana, why do we work 8 hours a day? Who one day woke up and said, let's work 8 hours a day? It actually was born out of the first industrial revolution, where machinery came onto being, and the machinery had to run 24 hours. So they divided the day into 3 shifts of 8 hours. And that's actually where the 8-hour workday was born. We are now in the 4th industrial revolution. Why are we so-called still contracted to work 8 hours a day? Why can't we work 4 or 3 or 2 or 1? And those companies such as Microsoft, for example, who have now taken the 5-day work week and they've condensed it into the 4-day work week, have seen actually productivity arise. The next thing is observation. And carrying on what from Zuki was saying, is that truthfully, we've lost the ability to observe. And interesting enough, I was listening to a podcast and someone said, like, if you actually want to know what you should actually be doing now, or what maybe you have a profession in, is maybe ask people around you. So they listen to what you're good at, what you talk about. So it might be someone who talks about art all the time, loves it, she's passionate about it. And think what it is that you love to speak about, what it is that you enjoy, and that you feel that that's what you're known for. So, you know, and sometimes dig deep, sometimes think you might not be known for something, but for example, I can sing, but I'm not known for that. But maybe that's sitting somewhere that it's an opportunity to become a career going forward. So observation is so important in actually seeing what's going on there and seeing what problems and challenges are facing the world. If you just sat, I promise you, probably in Sandton City, and just observed people, you've probably come up with 10 different business ideas. Do you know, when I stand in a queue, I've already come up with 5, how to improve the way that the queues are done, and I've already thought the system should be working this way. So just through observation, if people need to do that, will start to reignite their creativity muscle, which means it starts to give you those choices in life.
Well, Lana, what you're saying is very valuable, and I love how you say podcasting as well. And what you get your mind used to is what you will eventually do.
Yeah.
Skills, if you just joined in, that's what we're talking about. Lana Roy just unpacked that, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to Seth Godin the other day, and he's got a great talk around the Industrial Revolution and school, and this whole 8 to 5 notion, and how we do. In fact, there's books written about the shorter work week as well. I'm sure Zuki, you're familiar with that. Now, speaking of these practical examples, immediately I start thinking, I mean, I'm really enjoying this because you're taking what we've been doing out of lockdown and you're normalizing it. I mean, I dislike the word new normal. I don't like it very much.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But on a Thursday here, we've learned about the word new average. So that's one of the words that we learned in one of our talks. And I really enjoy the new average because you've just reset it as well by saying, Zuki, you just mentioned how you're doing all these things and you're wondering, am I on the right track? And then you go, wait a minute, I'm actually on trend. I'm not the only one that's working from home feeling alone. It's okay to feel alone. Now, what am I going to do about this? So if we had to take it further, right? Practical examples and tips to go about in reinventing your career and your business. Because now you've just positioned this new average for us. Now I'm ready to excel. You know, I'm ready to make money. I'm ready to go places. All of a sudden, I don't need the recognition certificate anymore. You know, maybe I don't even need the diploma. I just need to feel like I'm growing as a human or a business owner, and that I'm going places.
The first thing is to get yourself resourced. In other words, if there was ever a time to read and research and listen to others and pull out teachers who teach about various things that interest you, get involved now, because what that will do is it will calm and allay any fears and anxiety that you have about your situation. Fear is, fear exists because you know very little about the thing. You cannot fear a thing you know a lot about, right? So if you do nothing else, get yourself to a point of knowing, get yourself information, and it is so easily available, right? The second thing is, and I'll give an example, is start applying the stuff that Lana's talking about, that ability to think creatively. And everybody has it in them. It's to see, how to connect dots differently, in a way that is away from what we've been conditioned to do. As easy as that is to say, it can be done. Here's an example. I meet a young man who came across my coaching practice, and he says to me that, you know what, I'm a salesperson. I sell cars. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. But now I can't do that anymore, right? My commissions have reduced, blah, blah, blah. But then he says, I thought about this thing. If I work for a single car brand selling a car, they own me for 8 hours a day. And my sales target is 6 cars based on the models that they have available in that brand, in that particular dealership. And what do they give me in exchange? They give me a laptop and a vehicle for me to go to my customers and to service them running, on their systems. But then he thought, wait a minute, if that's what I'm getting, a laptop and a car, I can buy myself a car. I've got a laptop, so I can sell. That's my skill. Why do I have to sell a single brand? So what he did was he created a platform, a basic thing on the internet where he profiled himself as your car connoisseur. So when you want a car, and you know why, you want to buy up or you want to buy down, or you want to exchange or whatever, talk to me because I'm the expert, and then I will go find that car from you, and I will remove the rigmarole and the mess that goes in that process of buying a car. And now he represents 10 brands as opposed to 1. And what has he done to his earning potential? Opened it up tenfold. So, and that's how you apply that creativity, is to say, what do I have? What can I do? What do people around me need? And somewhere in between is the flavor that is uniquely Ilana that you can bring to the table, right? Because ultimately, people buy from people that they admire, people they love, and people they trust. So if you are the person they love, admire, and trust, and you have said, guys, I'm your car person from now on, they're going to come to you. And so that's what I would recommend people start doing. Start looking in your toolbox of things. What have you done? Listen, what do your friends say about you? Do they come to you for information? Do they rely on you for advice? Do they rely on you for being organized? What is it that people around you naturally gravitate towards you for? And then think, how can I make this audience wider? The minute it goes wider, you've got a business.
Wow. Well, I even hear how you say it. And I think the two things that stood out for me is the word trust. You know, we trust our friends, and that's when we ask them for the one skill that we think they're good at, and you can monetize that. And even collaboration, you know, to have the ability to collaborate with someone on something, and that could be lucrative. Just some comments that's come through. Sylvia says, great discussions, love the idea of multiple stream of income and things that you can do and love doing. And that's what we talked about earlier when we talked about lockdown, and the fact that we're not just doing one thing anymore, but we're doing multiple things in order to earn money. What would you say, and Lana, this is to you and also to Zuki, someone who feels stuck, going back to the creativity conversation, you know, you don't know how to become creative, because let's face it, for years we are taught that creativity is always colorful. And Lana, I had a giggle because when you talked about the Picasso and the painting, I thought of the name of your company, and it's quite creative, you know, unicorns. Immediately I think of glitter and parties and, you know, colorful. So what if you can't get to that point of creativity? Maybe creativity means to you stepping out and speaking to more than one person, you know, it's so different for all of us.
So creativity, just, we are all born with it. So there was this experiment done by this Professor George Land, if I can say it quickly, that he worked for NASA as a consultant, and they asked him to prepare some form of creativity tests for their astronauts, scientists, and engineers, which he did, and it proved to be quite successful. What he chose to do was to run a longitudinal study, and he actually gave that same test that he gave to the astronauts and so on to 5-year-olds. And they actually scored a 98% creativity genius level. He retested them again at 10 years old. They dropped to 30. Again at 15, dropped to about 12% or 15%. And as adults, he gave the same kid the same test. The adults, the same adults that he'd given the test to the kids earlier, and they came up with a 2% creativity genius level. So all that's happened, as you can see, we've been conditioned and we've been taught this convergent approach. So what are the tools? How do you start to reignite your creativity? You've got to think like a 5-year-old again. It's really as simple as that. And I was starting to look at the nuggets. So I'm saying, what does a kid do all the time? We know he asks the question, why? Why can't I play outside? Why can't I run with my clothes not on? He asks, and as soon as we enter the school system, you put up your hand, you ask, why? What happens? You stupid, Tabo, Johnny, put your hand down. Kids like to observe. Kids like to observe what's going on. When you know, I was driving with my son a few weeks ago, and we're driving past and in the roads, and he says, Mom, did you see that Lamborghini with the red stripe on the and I say to him, Zach, what car? I didn't even see the car go past. You know, children can see things, and this is what I was saying earlier. We've lost that ability. Children, if I gave a child a box now, do you know how many different ideas that child could think of to do with that box? He could play the whole day. You give an adult a box now, and he thinks, what must I put in it? What's it for? You know? And the last one is conceptual blending. And what Zuki was saying is that creativity really is all about connectivity, about connecting things. What we do is our brain is conditioned to thinking in boxes. And that's why when they say, think out of the box, it means you have to come out of that particular box, and you have to join different boxes together. And I think in terms of somebody who's really good at that is our Rabbi Masinta. He knows how to take our own religion and Judaism and Chabad, and he knows how to join it with other boxes, making the brand of Chabad so successful. And there are guys like Apple, or you've got guys like Steve Jobs, who was able to see that in terms of taking music and a phone or a camera and a phone. So those are this is how you train your brain, and you have to work on those things. And in terms of pivoting, let me just give you one example I would say to people. So if you're if you've had a restaurant business, and this was during lockdown, I'm just using this quick example. People could order takeaways, but they couldn't come to the restaurant. And if you were the owner or the person and said to yourself, what is it about the restaurant that people go there? You know, because truthfully, I can order takeaway and I can get the same food. But we like the experience. We like to go there, the ambiance, the experience. So how should restaurants maybe have pivoted their business? Was to bring the experience to me. And that could be for spas or anything. And what I mean by that, maybe a restaurant could have come, and in my suburb, they could have said, right, everyone put their tables outside and we'll do a street evening. Or if spas could maybe connect with champagne companies and say, we bring this called a spa spritzer now, where you see, because it's the experience that people really like. And this is how we have to start pivoting. And when that's what we talk about, pivoting, creativity, and coming up with those ideas. And I'll hand over to Zuki.
I mean, there's another example we found, right? Just observing what people have done to reinvent and pivot. Remember the old idea of going to a drive-in cinema? Remember the drive-in? You go to an open space and watch on a big screen. And now look at the trend of how shopping centers are, you know, not as occupied as they used to be. And so now bring up the drive-in cinema into a shopping center parking, and suddenly you've got, you know, an old concept coming into the new, because you still want to be in an entertainment space, but you have to comply with all of these safety regulations. So the drive-in was experienced in your car, but outside and with other people. And now you can do that again because, hey, we find ourselves in a COVID time. So if I were to close any piece of advice, Ilana, right now, I would firstly reiterate, calm down, because if you're not in a calm state, you will busy yourself with the news. And the news are going to send you into a very deep and dark spiral downwards, right? And you will not be able to pull yourself out. Switch off social media for a week. My goodness, you will survive. Don't listen to the news. Listen to yourself. Consume data, the information that feeds you, things that excite you. Like, go back to that. It doesn't matter if your friends or your network say, oh, did you hear that on social media? Did you see what's trending? If you have nothing to contribute to that conversation, it is okay. Really, by next week, you'll catch up. So spend a lot of time on you. Just invest in the human being that you are, again, because what you will find is that once you get yourself into that space, you actually do know what you really want to do. You remember the things you promised yourself when you were 25, that if I had all the time and the money in the world, this is what I would do. Now you're 45. And guess what? You have a lot of time on your hands now because the president has locked you into your home. Your employer has possibly retrenched you. So time is on your side. You may not have all the money you dreamt about, but my goodness, you have that precious and valuable commodity, which is time. Use that in a way that builds. Stop consuming information that continues to break you down.
Well, you just closed, and I was going to ask you a question around longevity of creativity, and I think you've answered it. And even though I had a giggle at times, I must tell you, you just broke it down for me properly. That a lot of the time you go, I wish if I only had more time, you know?
Yeah.
And now that you've given the time, you've just given us tools of what to actually do. I love the fact that you can point our direction into fake news and also things that we consume that are bad. If we can only focus our minds to what is good, we will do good, right? And you will start thinking positively. So I think even for concentrating on self-work, that's amazing advice. So thank you so much. Lana,
Thank
if you
you.
had to, anytime, if you had to close and give us all some inspiration from a creativity side. You know, the one thing I thought of is, so now you've given us tools of how to become creative, and our employer is not there to steer the boat to creativity anymore. How does one keep the creativity? How do we make it how do we give it longevity? How do we keep being creative? And Zosie touched on that when she said the fact that, you know what, you can go back to not having social media, dreaming again like a 25-year-old, fill yourself with positive things and things that you like. What would you say from a creative point of view?
So I think Zuki summed it beautifully, is the time, because everything, I guess, is around time. I don't have time to be creative because it's a muscle if you think about it. And you know, if I say to you, Elon, I want a 6-pack stomach, you would say, okay, Lon, you're going to need to go to the gym. So go get a personal trainer and here's your plan. And on top of it, you're going to have to go to a dietitian who's going to help you with a diet plan. And if that's what you really want, and that's what you want to achieve, you will do it, and you will take that methodology and plan, you will follow it, and please God, in 6 months, you will be Mrs. South Africa, whatever the case. And this is the same thing with creativity, is that you have to actually make time. It sounds weird. I'm going to make time to be creative. So there are so many different practices. So for example, just to give you one, if I say to you, Ilana, here's a spoon, teaspoon. Okay, how many alternative uses could you think of? I want you to think of 30. And what that does is divergent thinking. It makes you stop thinking that, hold on, a spoon is only used for eating or stirring or whatever. What else can a spoon be used for? What else can an umbrella be used for? And conceptual blending that I was talking about, things like you take, if I've got a pen here and the scissors, what new product can I create by just joining these two together? And these are the exercises that, you know, when I go through in a workshop, we go through, and this is what you have to keep practicing. And if you've got the time now, start doing that. And truthfully, you can do it in your car. You can do it with your kids. You can do it with your family. You can do it as a work opening session. There are so many creative exercises that we go through. And really, it's taking that muscle and once again expanding it so that we create, or we come back to that 98% creativity genius level. And just think, you know, if we are all creative, I promise you, there's a great person from a company called IDEO, the biggest design thinking agency, and he speaks to a group of Stanford students, and he says to them, most people bring about maybe between 5 and 10% of themselves of their creative selves to work. Right. He says, just imagine we increase that to 50%. He said, company would have no competition. They would be far beyond, because everyone else is bringing 10%, and I teach you how to bring 50%, no more competition. And that's the whole thing. We want to try, we don't want to be necessarily different, but we want to be able to thrive in this new workplace. And we want to be able to like reignite our next. And by doing that, take the time, as Zuki said, look into yourself, take that time to try and broaden your skill set, and then apply them so that you can actually make some money and earn a living in today's world.
And I guess we're going to have to do it quickly. This was amazing. Lana, Roy, thank you. Great seeing you again. Wonderful advice. And it makes me want to go and be creative. I'm going to try the spoon one first. I'm kidding. Zuki, it was a pleasure meeting you as well. Zuki Mzozoyana, you can find her on 21st Century Humans, an amazing site that inspires you as well through other entrepreneurs that are helping people in South Africa to just be more creative. and to help us build our businesses. And Lana Roy, from goats to unicorns. Another comment before I close. Wow, brilliant way to refocus our energy and to look at things in a different way and perspective. Thanks for the great insight. So thank you so much for your comments as well. No questions at this stage. Zuki saying thanks, and also Palisa saying thank you so much, ladies. So inspiring. You are an inspiration, and I think you're taking everyone in the workplace out of lockdown into our new world, which is our new average. I refuse to say new normal.
So last year.
So last year. Kaya, are you there?
Yes. Yes. That was really great, ladies. I would like to thank both Lana and Zuki for a superb, informative, and enlightening presentation. Really, you have shown us how to think differently and creatively in the 21st century and the skills needed to achieve this end. It was such a privilege and pleasure to listen to you guys. We truly appreciate people like yourselves who are willing to give of their time and talents to enrich the lives of others. Thank you once again, Ilana, for your dedicated time and devotion always, for your magnificent, dynamic, and professional interview, which is always so thought-provoking as well as most entertaining. Thank you to everybody else. Thanks to all the listeners. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, bye, Zuki.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. You guys, we truly appreciate people like yourselves.
Leas-Roy, Ashraichem, Marabakive, Ashraichem, Leas-Roy, Ashraichem, Litnaim, Yatem, Metare, Matem, Metare, Metare, Litnaim, Yatem, Metare, Matem, Metare, Metare,